The door's electronic mechanisms had died decades ago, Anakin noted, waving his hand at the transparent steel. Years of accumulated dust had rendered it completely opaque. The force flowed through the gesture as he slid it sideways, corroded metal screaming against its frame. Night wind hit immediately, driving particles into his eyes. He didn't mind. He had bigger concerns. The works district stretched before him, an industrial cancer on Coruscant's pristine surface that no one bothered removing. The metallurgy lab he just used had been dead 50 years, bankrupt since the corporations fled to cheaper worlds, abandoning this graveyard of commerce. Above, 4 moons cast enough light to navigate by, supplemented by the distant glow of the inhabited districts bleeding over the horizon. A rusted walkway stretched 50 meters ahead, groaning under his weight as he dragged 3 dark polymer bags behind him. 400 meters below, the district's surface level lay in darkness. His speeder waited at the walkway's truncated end, hovering beside where the right-hand railing had corroded away entirely, the only opening low enough to load the bags through. His previous disposal method had been compromised 6 weeks ago. The incinerator in that abandoned Techno-Union facility near the Temple District, too close for comfort really, had served him well until a renovation team discovered hundreds of bones in its massive furnace. Hundreds of bones from hundreds of criminals he had dismembered and burned over the years. The media sensation and ongoing investigation had complicated things considerably. But the urge didn't care about complications. It clawed at Anakin's insides until Hondo Ohnaka practically fell into his lap. Turns out the slaver captain maintained a hideout here, this very facility Anakin was now exiting. All it had taken was an encrypted message on a pirate channel about wealthy Coruscanti planning an exclusive party here. Perfect kidnapping targets. Hondo had arrived with his crew, 17 slavers total, walking into their own tomb. Killing all 17 of Hondo's associates had been straightforward work, lightsaber and force, quick and efficient. He'd knocked Hondo unconscious first, setting the captain aside while clearing out the crew. The associates were just obstacles to remove. Hondo was what the darkness inside him actually wanted, someone to take his time with, to methodically slice into 9 pieces. The defunct water dam deeper in the works had proven perfect for disposal. The massive reservoir, originally built to supply coolant for this sector's manufacturing plants, sat festering in its 10-square-kilometer basin, 50 years of accumulated rainwater mixing with the industrial chemicals that still seeped from the sector's corpse. After finishing with the crew, he'd hauled their bodies to the edge, where the old pumping stations once drew millions of gallons daily. They sank straight to the bottom, 300 meters down, devoured by whatever had evolved in those poisoned depths after 50 years of chemical mutation, nature's own evidence disposal service. Then he'd return to the unconscious Hondo and spend hours on what he'd really come for. After bagging the dismembered slaver, Yoda's urgent holocall had arrived. Master Fisto had taken too much spice and was at Padme's penthouse, trying to kill her. He'd rushed away immediately, genuinely terrified, leaving Hondo bagged and alone. 20 minutes later, he was at Padme's door. Instead of a crazed Fisto, he'd found senators and Jedi throwing him a surprise birthday party. Yoda had orchestrated everything for one of his favorite Jedi. With the incinerator bone case under Jedi investigation, the Council certain the blade work meant someone from the Order, birthdays hadn't even registered for Anakin or Padme. By the time Padme learned what was happening, Yoda and half the Council were already in her home. Calling it off would draw exactly the kind of attention they couldn't afford. So she played the excited wife. Padme had her own arrangements on Naboo, had since her time as queen, never a single issue. She'd suggested he join her there, away from Coruscant's crowds and cameras, but Anakin needed his city, his hunting grounds. So here they were, 10 hours enduring forced celebration, surrounded by Jedi, military brass, and CSF officers who'd notice any hasty exit. When Anakin finally returned to the lab, Hondo's pieces had gone soft and dark, marinating in their own fluids within the bags. The smell had been significant. And so here he was, disposing of Hondo at last. He'd reached the walkway's end. It ran 2 meters wide, ending at empty air where scavengers had long ago stripped away whatever platform once extended beyond. 400 meters of nothing between the rusted edge and the work's dead surface below. His speeder hovered alongside, close enough to load. He tossed 2 of the bags into the speeder's cargo hold, then paused with the 3rd. The polymer was torn. No, not torn. Sliced. One clean cut, as if someone had. "That's right, motherfucker, it's over." The voice came from behind him. Anakin sensed the presence, would have sensed it earlier if he hadn't been so focused on Hondo. He turned. There stood the Jedi who had always been suspicious of him, never trusted him, practically hated him. Jocasta Nu, in full Jedi robes, hood down, her weathered face twisted in disgust. The blaster in her hands made Anakin's stomach drop. A Jedi killer from the restricted vault. Its bolts would explode against any force defense or saber blade. Her lightsaber remained clipped to her belt, untouched. "How did you find me?" Anakin asked. "Micro-tracker on your speeder," she said, keeping the blaster trained on him. "Stars and Skywalker," she spat. "Stars f***ing end. You're the Senate District Slicer." "I really hate that name," Anakin said conversationally. "Stars End, man," Nu repeated, apparently stuck on the phrase. "You said that," Anakin noted. "Always knew there was something with you, but this shit?" "What can I say? You were right about me," the Chosen One said. "Never held it against you. I don't now. I'm happy for you." "Shut the f*** up," Nu snarled, tossing a pair of force-dampening handcuffs at his feet. They clattered on the rusted metal. "Let's get this over with." Anakin looked down at the cuffs, then back at her. "Put 'em on," she ordered. "Skywalker, you're done. Give it up." "Would you, in my position?" Anakin asked. "I wouldn't be in your position, you sick f***," Nu shot back. "You sure about that? Might want to check with Windu." The comment struck home. Nu had never hidden her hatred for Anakin. When the SDS investigation opened, she'd spotted patterns, victims disappearing near the temple during Anakin's unaccounted hours, several with connections to Senator Amidala. She knew Padme had to be into something too. What normal person would be with this creep? No one would believe her accusations against the Republic's hero, so she investigated alone, found an ornate box of blood slides in his quarters, his trophies. The problem was, her increasingly erratic behavior had caught Windu's attention, putting her on his suspect list. Jedi shadows began following her. She'd gone to a spaceport to arrange off-world transport, planning to get the slides tested for irrefutable proof, the only way to expose who the Jedi's golden boy really was. While she was inside arranging passage, the shadows raided her speeder and found the slides. She saw them before they saw her, slipping away through the spaceport crowds. Now she was the prime suspect for being the Senate District Slicer. With the slides gone, catching Anakin in the act was her only option. She'd placed a micro-tracker on his speeder weeks ago, her last card to play. It had led her straight to his latest kill. This, catching him red-handed with body parts, would prove everything. Nu aimed the blaster closer. "Hey, if I die, who proves you're innocent?" Anakin pointed out. "Maybe I'll just kneecap you," she said, adjusting her aim lower. Anakin finally nodded. "Fine." He reached for the cuffs. He put them on, the force-dampening technology immediately making him feel hollow. "Good. Now walk, slowly." Nu backed away, keeping the blaster on him. He stood and began walking toward her. The rusted grating lay behind her. Anakin knew exactly where, having nearly caught his foot there, setting up Hondo's trap days ago. Easy to miss even in daylight. Nu might have noticed it coming in, but retreating in darkness, adrenaline pumping, focused entirely on him. They moved like this for several steps, Nu backing away, Anakin following. He could gauge the distance perfectly. Almost there. He moved in deliberately too fast. "Back up, Skywalker," Nu snapped. "Just following your lead." He raised his cuffed hands to his chest, stepping forward again. She stepped back reflexively, and her foot went through the corroded metal. She stumbled. Even without the force, Anakin lunged. They struggled for the weapon, a shot fired, grazing his thigh. His headbutt connected. Nu twisted her legs, dropping him, but the cuffed hands were already at her throat. The proximity of the activated force-dampening technology weakened her connection too. He locked in the sleeper hold until she went limp. He couldn't kill her. She didn't fit his code. She wasn't a murderer, wasn't evil. Just an annoying librarian trying to do what she thought was right. Anakin found the keys in her robes, freed himself, then cuffed the unconscious Nu. He loaded her into the speeder along with Hondo's remains and flew to the dam. After dumping the pirate's body parts into the murky water, watching the shadows beneath the surface converge on the sinking bags, he carried Nu to a small office in the attached complex, another abandoned structure slowly being reclaimed by rust and time. When she woke, she found herself looking through a transparent steel window at Anakin, tending to his wound. "I hope it's f***ing deep," she said. "No, just a graze, sorry to disappoint," Anakin replied, cleaning the burn. "Why couldn't you just leave me to do my work in peace? Why'd you have to ruin everything?" His tone was flat, sounding genuinely curious about Nu's motives. "I had to bring you to justice. You're a killer." Anakin laughed. "More archive-related executions than any other Jedi. You're a killer just like me, Master." "F*** you. I kill when I have to, on the job. The Council sanctions my actions," Nu protested. "So it's okay to kill as long as you have their blessing?" Anakin sealed the Bacta spray and stood, shaking his head. At zero cost to the temple, I've stopped more crimes than any Jedi. If you ask me, I'm a bargain. Nu saw it then. He truly believed what he was saying. What are you going to do now, Skywalker? One of the killers in this room has to disappear, Anakin said simply. I've done the math, calculated our respective contributions, our social networks, the ripple effects, and it's going to be you. You don't get to calculate who deserves to. I have a wife who loves me. Friends, 2 2-year-old children, who you and your psycho wife abandoned with her sister on Naboo 2 years ago and haven't visited since, Nu interjected. Anakin continued as if she hadn't spoken. Point is, I have people who care about me. People I care for deeply. People whose lives would shatter if I got caught. You, on the other hand, I doubt you have anyone you've ever cared for. F*** you. F*** you. I have my books, my archives. Oh, don't worry. You'll be in them soon enough. The Senate District Slicer, Jocasta Nu and her crimes, has a nice ring to it. Anakin smiled and headed for the door. I have some things to take care of. Be back soon. Don't go anywhere. He left the room as Nu screamed behind him. He had to get back to the Senate District, with the temple and the entire district crawling with CSF officers, Jedi Shadows, and Sentinels. Any unaccounted time would draw scrutiny. Plus, he needed to figure out how to deal with Nu. Kill her? She didn't fit the code. Then again, the first rule was don't get caught. Anakin flew away as dawn painted Coruscant's sky in shades of pollution and hope. What Anakin didn't know was that Palpatine, obsessed with the young Jedi and close to executing Order 66, had also placed a tracker on his speeder after noticing behavioral changes. Palpatine's airspeeder landed near the dam at the works, where tracker data showed Anakin had parked for hours after his birthday celebration, his longest stop. Following Force signatures through the abandoned complex to investigate what had kept the young Jedi here so long, he sensed an unexpected presence. Jocasta Nu, angry and desperate, imprisoned in a nearby office. Chancellor, Nu exclaimed when he appeared at the transparisteel. Thank the Force. You have to let me out. Skywalker is the Senate District Slicer. I have proof. Palpatine reached out through the Force, sensing the echoes of violence that clung to this place. Fresh death in the water below. Bodies recently fed to whatever lurked in those toxic depths, and traces of rage and methodical dismemberment from somewhere nearby. Nu was telling the truth. His eyes lit up with genuine delight. This meant Anakin would make an even better apprentice than he'd imagined. The old Sith Lord actually laughed. Are you going to let me out? Nu demanded, growing angry at his reaction. Palpatine raised his hand and the door ripped apart with the Force. Something Nu couldn't have done with the Force-dampening cuffs still on her wrists. He stepped into the small office. No, he said, stretching his face into exaggerated dismay, mouth pulling wide, eyebrows climbing toward his hairline, the word warped by his theatrical facial contortions. Lightning erupted from his fingertips. The purple electricity coursed through Nu until she fell silent, smoke filling the space. But what Palpatine didn't know was that Nu kept powdered spice in her belt. The old librarian had quite the habit. The intense heat vaporized it into smoke. Palpatine stood there, inhaling deeply, laughing at nothing in particular because that's what Sith Lords do after murders, apparently. Had to maintain the aesthetic, even with no audience but himself. The spice smoke filled his lungs before he realized something was wrong. By the time he stumbled out of the office, the drug had taken hold. He stood at the railing overlooking the dam, and that's when the visions began. The sky seemed to darken. Rising from the toxic water below, he saw his old master, Darth Plagueis, somehow alive, somehow here, challenging him for supremacy. No, Palpatine wailed, the word warping into something inhuman. Plagueis shot Force lightning at him. Palpatine responded in kind, stumbling forward as they exchanged electrical volleys. In reality, Palpatine was electrocuting himself while stumbling down the spillway, a shallow concrete channel that fed runoff into the dam. The ankle-deep water acted as a perfect conductor for his own Force lightning. He cooked himself with his own power, twitching and sparking until his charred body tumbled down the spillway into the reservoir, where the mutated creatures made short work of the most powerful Sith Lord in generations. When Palpatine went missing, investigators tracked him to the works, where they found Nu's charred remains in the office. Windu concluded the Chancellor and Nu had been serial killer lovers. The Force lightning suggested Palpatine killed her when she became a liability and fled. The official report concluded, Senate District Slicers, plural, Republic-wide manhunt ongoing. A holofilm went into production within weeks. The Chancellor's Secret, the true story of the Senate District Slicer, would go on to win several awards. The real Senate District Slicer was never caught. Anakin's code remained unbroken. Then Anakin and Padme went to Tatooine, to celebrate their wedding anniversary by chopping up a Tuscan village. And they all lived happily ever after. The end.